It's day 589. It's also December 15th, 2020, and we are in Hays, Kansas. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life. Life out there. For visuals while listening, to watch the video versions of this podcast, or even just to say hey, check us out on our website at lifeoutthere.me. Our next set of discoveries would come just a few hundred miles up the road from Platte City, Missouri, in a place called Hays, Kansas. And once again, we found ourselves driving into an endless horizon. And this one belonged to the Kansas prairie. The scenery around us in constant change, fall to winter, and then back again. But somehow, the faint scent of a harvest still lingered in the air. We pushed west, the landscape morphing slowly but surely as you cross into Kansas. The grasslands are wide here, skies wide open, deep blue. In between those brief temper tantrums winter kept throwing our way. According to the calendar, it's still late fall. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the land. But the wind was cold. The air, crisp, alive, fresh even. And somewhere out there, heading into the heart of Kansas, we saw that sign, the Cathedral of the Plains, historical landmark. Well, we couldn't ignore that, so we pulled off the highway for a look. And what we found? Stunning. A massive limestone church rising out of the prairie, the Cathedral of the Plains. Built in 1911, it stands as a monument to the tenacity of the people who built it. 220 feet long, 110 feet wide, with towers reaching 145 feet into the Kansas sky. It's one of the largest churches west of the Mississippi, capable of seating more than 1,100 people. It's hard not to be humbled, standing there looking at that. But Victoria, proud as she is of her cathedral, didn't offer much for travelers like us. Certainly no RV park. And with the weather shifting as fast as it was, we needed electricity. So boondocking was out. But no problem. Just 8 miles north, we found Hays and settled in for the night at the RV Village on Vine. And we'd barely gotten set up when there was a knock on the door. Wade and Risa, our camp hosts. Risa smiled, lifted a plastic container and asked, "You're not a vegetarian or nothing, are you?" As she handed me homemade meatloaf and a salad. Turns out we'd landed in just another of those places where hospitality runs as deep as the open skies. And that simple act was just the beginning. What started as an overnight stop would stretch into a full-blown exploration of Hays, a town more steeped in history than I ever could have imagined. Wade and Risa became our guides, taking us around town, sharing stories, inviting us to meals, and making sure Dougie, Billie, and I never went hungry. Risa's cooking alone. Well, let's just say a guy could get used to this. And here in Hays, we'd also meet other super cool folks that reminded us of a lifestyle that, up until just a couple years ago, I would have had no idea even existed. But today, we see it all around us, no matter where we go. Here, we'd meet Jimmy and his trusty sidekick puppy Zed. Jimmy, an enterprising 19-year-old, had saved up all through high school working odd jobs so that he could buy himself a 20-foot travel trailer, hitch it up to his Toyota pickup, and work on road crews all across the country. Wherever the work is, that's where you'll find Jimmy. And said. Then there was Bill and Lisa, traveling nurses, they told us. And they had this business of life on the road dialed in. A beautiful and enormous fifth-wheel trailer with the name Montana emblazoned across the front of it. 3 slides and nicer on the inside than any home I'd ever lived in. They were about to start their 6th year on the road. Working with an agency, they'd be dispatched to spots all across the country to help with healthcare needs wherever needed. And, needless to say, this pandemic had kept them pretty busy. And each time they hit the road for the next assignment, they'd head out swapping driving duties between that big Ford F-350 towing that palace on wheels and the other in the little electric car following along behind. Today, Hays is a college town of about 20,000, home to Fort Hays State University, a campus with more than 15,000 students, and an incredible story of its own. The university sits on what used to be a frontier military post, Fort Hays. The blend of old and new here, well, it's something special. Historic stone buildings like Picken Hall stand beside sleek, modern facilities. It's a campus where history and progress literally share the same ground. And tucked within it all, the Sternberg Museum of Natural History, one of the best small-town museums you'll ever find. But the university isn't where this story begins. Long before soldiers and settlers, this land belonged to the Kansa, or Kaw people. Then came 1867 when the town of Hays City was officially founded, just as the railroad was pushing west. The Smoky Hill Trail passed nearby, and that meant trade, opportunity, and trouble. And Hays grew fast. Too fast, maybe. What started as a dusty little outpost soon became a magnet for every kind of drifter, soldier, and dreamer you could imagine chasing fortune on the Great Plains. And like most boomtowns of the frontier, Hays had its share of chaos. I get the sense that if you stand still long enough, you can almost hear the echoes. Gunfights, cattle drives, and saloon doors creaking open into the night. It's wild to think about, but this quiet university town was once home to some of the biggest names of the Old West. Wild Bill Hickok, Buffalo Bill Cody, even General George Armstrong Custer passed through here. Hays was a crossroads for the people who carved their names into America's frontier mythology. And here's a fun fact. The first ever Boot Hill Cemetery was right here in Hays. Not Dodge City like most folks think. Cowboys, gunfighters, and outlaws buried with their boots still on. A grim tradition that spread from here clear down to Tombstone, Arizona. Fort Hays itself was established in 1865 to protect settlers during the Indian Wars. It stayed active until 1889, a key outpost in those turbulent years. And when the Army finally packed up, the land was turned over for education. And by 1902, it had become the site of the Kansas State Normal School, what we now know as Fort Hays State University. In those early days, the fort's old infirmary served as a classroom for 57 students, who paid $5 each for summer courses. The guardhouse became the first gymnasium. And just like that, a military outpost was reborn into a place of learning. Walk that campus today, and you can still feel it, the weight of time. You'll see cattle grazing just beyond the fences, buffalo roaming in the distance even, and historic markers scattered across the grounds. It's all still here, the bones of the old fort beneath the heartbeat of a modern college town. And though Hayes has quieted over the years, there's still a pulse, a sense of history just beneath the surface. The people here know it, too. They live surrounded by reminders of what this place once was. Oh, and another little piece of trivia. In 1861, when Kansas was still a super young state, Hayes was even considered as a possible site for the capital. It lost out, but that didn't stop it from playing a key role in the shaping of Kansas growth. Our last afternoon here was spent wandering those university grounds, standing in the shadow of old stone buildings, staring at the ruins of the original fort. I couldn't help but feel connected, like the ground itself was telling the story of the West, of resilience, of how places like this endure. And before we knew it, a week had passed. Dougie even made a new buddy, Wade and Reese's little pup, Cammy. And we were torn, honestly. Stay another few days, maybe? But the weather this time of year can turn on a dime. And we knew the deeper we went into fall, the worse those mountain passes out west would get. We had just 500 miles to go, but there's no way around it. From Kansas to Colorado's western slope, that means mountain passes, climbing to 10,000 feet and then back down again. And in December, that's a gamble. So, this morning, a beautiful fall morning in Kansas, after a few goodbyes over coffee and more goodies packed up by Wade and Risa, we'd hit the road mid-morning heading west once again. And as pretty normal for us, not knowing how far we'd make it before the weather, or nightfall, would decide the next stop. And I wonder what we'll learn there. This thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.